This magic lantern slide is a link in a little-known story that spans 100 years at the house. Rouse Hill House was continuously occupied by the Rouse and Terry families between the 1820s and the 1990s. The layers and layers of furnishing and the objects still in situ at the house show the residency of these families for 150 years. By the 1970s, the extraordinary nature of the house and its contents was starting to be recognised. It was transferred to the Historic Houses Trust for conservation, care and interpretation. The Rouse and Terry families made their own entertainment in the home through playing piano, singing, reading, playing charades, plays and magic lantern shows. All of these activities had a large impression on John Terry, who spent part of his childhood in the house.
My parents used to live down in the cottage down there, in the little slab cottage. And of course I did live there in the very, very, very early years, but still when I was very young, my mother used to piggyback me up here at night and drop me off just here actually, and then I'd run up to the main house and sleep the night there with my grandmother.
In the late 1960s, John Buchanan Rouse Terry moved back to Rouse Hill House as a recent music graduate. At this time, Dr. Terry was creating multimedia performances which he called psychedelic music. These performances he described as a bombardment to the senses, and they involved musical, sound effects, and lighting and visual effects as well. The performances John staged started out at the Blue Kettle, a cafe cum art gallery in Castle Hill. Late in 1967, he gave performances at the Wayside Chapel, and then, at the invitation of the International Society of Contemporary Music, he gave a performance on the 3rd of November 1967 at the Cell Block Theatre. For this performance, he expanded his normal repertoire to include a jazz trio and a string quartet. While there are no known recordings of these performances from the 1960s, there is a performance which was staged right here in the arcade at Rouse Hill House in 1998. It was at this time that the then curator, Lynn Collins, invited John to come back to the house and recreate those kind of experiences that he was creating in the 1960s.
It's just a happening and a casual one at that, okay?
Known as the arcade, known as the arcade, known as the arcade, known as the arcade, the most excellent theatre, the most excellent theatre, the most excellent theatre. We didn't have charades, but we didn't have charades. We had plays, we had plays, we had plays, we had plays, known as the arcade, known as the arcade, known as the arcade, known as the arcade, the most excellent theatre, the most excellent theatre, the most excellent theatre, the most excellent theatre, came out, came out, came out, came out, produced decorations, produced very early section, very early section, which was in the ground, carried out. It was in the ground, carried out. It was in the ground, carried out. It was in the ground, carried out. The old house.
For me, the most remarkable and surprising aspect of this performance that was held here in 1998 is that this 1860s magic lantern was front and centre. A magic lantern was the original technology that projected slides. This is a magic lantern that has been in the Rouse and Terry families for 100 years. And John Terry was particularly inspired by the lantern slide of the chromatrope, which is part of the collection. The magic lantern chromatrope slide had a brightly coloured geometric pattern on the inside. Two pieces of glass were painted with the same pattern, one reversed, and when the slide was working, which it doesn't anymore, so it must have had a lot of use, one piece of glass would rotate on top of the others when a lever was turned, and this would create a hypnotic effect when projected in the magic lantern. There are a number of different slides in the family's collection, including slip sliders, which had two pieces of glass with parts of images on them, and when the glass moved, it looked like the image was being animated in two states, as well as narrative slides, which had different scenes from stories. John used a number of magic lantern slides in his 1998 performance, and collection records note that he gave family and friends magic lantern shows when he was a child. He would play with the magic lantern in the arcade here by stringing up a sheet at the far end and making larger-than-life projections. The chromatrope was really the catalyst for John creating his own projection technology in the 1960s in the form of 35mm slides and 16mm film, which he hand-painted. John spliced together lengths of 16mm film, hand colouring and drawing on the film to create abstract movies. This is an example of where he's taken a 35mm slide mount and added different layers of paint, collage, and other things like string to create abstract images for projection. Aside from the projected visuals, irregular mirrored spheres threw light across the performance. John did not like the roundness of a mirror ball and instead constructed his own homemade mirror ball with irregular shaped facets so that the light would spread unevenly across the performance. In addition to the visuals John used during his performances, he also played organ and percussion on percussive instruments, as well as his grandmother's glassware. He played the music box that was from the front hall, bought in 1860, and also the dinner gong. Dr. Terry was also really inspired by Rouse Hill House and the surrounding property. He made audio recordings of the farm animals, objects from the kitchen, including his grandmother's glassware, which he said he sometimes broke from tapping too hard, and other sounds in the city that he included in the performances.
In 1875, it was suggested by my grandson that it might be of interest to the family if I made a few jottings.
Thank you.
In 1968, John's grandmother died and he left Rouse Hill House. It's not clear that he continued with psychedelic music, but he did go on to do further study, including a doctorate in creative arts, and he went on to play and compose and teach music across a number of platforms and media through his career. While it's unlikely that the magic lantern and other collection items will be used in psychedelic or other performances here at the house in the future, the digitisation of these items allows us to continue their presentation at the house.